in the last 8 months, I have made more money than I have in any single year of my career.
Wow.
Right? And I haven't even been working, right? I will say that my experience with startup is really my experience and not the prescription that I would give to everybody. In fact, I might almost caution against it because I feel like the statistics are not in your favor, right? Probability-wise, your startup will not succeed.
Warren is the co-founder of ParkEasy, a car park reservation service founded in 2014, which was then acquired by Shell in 2022. After the acquisition, at the age of only 34, Warren has achieved financial independence, retire early, a movement whereby through savings and investments, you can retire much earlier before the traditional retirement age of 60.
When you talk about FIRE, there's a type of FIRE whereby your plan is to have enough money until you pass away. Whereas there's another type of FIRE whereby you want to grow that nest egg such that you can actually pass that on.
In this episode, we'll dive deeper into his FIRE journey and hopefully inspire you to achieve financial independence earlier in life.
I can tell you that across the board, I see a lot of startups. All the founders just pay themselves peanuts, enough to survive.
Bare minimum.
Right? Bare minimum, right? I think you need to change that mindset because the success of your company's sale is very much so a bet.
What does the 1% know about FIRE that the 99% doesn't know?
That's what I think the 1% thinks about. They don't think about
Warren, founder and former CEO of ParkEasy, one of Malaysia's largest EV charging app, which has now been acquired by Shell. And you are also now a member of FIRE, F.I.R.E. Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Yeah.
Bring me through, how did you start at ParkEasy?
How did I start ParkEasy? Back in 2013, Obama was supposed to come to Malaysia. There was this thing called the Global Entrepreneurship Summit. Shortly before that event, there was like a brainstorming session that I had done in my previous company, whereby we were just talking about solutions to common everyday problems. And I still remember now we were looking at Bangsa Telawi area. And if you've been there, you know that it's very hard to find parking. So one of the ideas proposed was like, why don't we have like a car park booking system so that you'd be able to park and not cause a jam and all that sort of stuff, right? And it was kind of like just a thought. But as the thought kind of like has been, inception, like seeded in your mind, right? Then it kind of like grew over time. And so that by the time that I went for the satellite event, I already had like some pretty strong ideas about it. And curious enough, I was just speaking to this guy who was sitting next to me. And I was just saying, I'm not an entrepreneur. I haven't done any business so far. But I have this, if I was to do something, this is an idea I have. Right? And the guy sitting next to me was just listened, very carefully. And after that, he pulled out his phone and he had Google Slides on his phone and say, look, I made slides for your idea. I have the same idea, right?
Okay.
That guy eventually became my co-founder. His name is Eric. So I would say if you're talking about when did it actually like the idea and the start of it happen, I would say it's 2013. But in terms of the actual founding of the company, it's only in August of 2014 because I was engaged with my previous company and Eric was the one who actually was continuing on. He's like a serial hackathon winner, so like very, very clever. Programmer. Well, he's now a CTO, but previously he was more towards a programmer. He continued the journey, so he actually won another hackathon, and from that hackathon, then he started the idea of ParkEasy. Back then, they called it Park In. And then what happened was that in the end of 2014, start of 2015, Eric came to me and said, "Hey, look, I'm more comfortable in doing tech rather than doing like the business, the managing people, that sort of stuff." And because he had worked close to me in the past, he knew that he was comfortable with me taking on that particular role. So he actually asked me to join, right? He actually asked me to join before he founded, and then after he founded, he then also asked me to join again. But I said, look, I had just come out of my previous company, and I kind of like needed a spacer, a breather. So I actually went on a 10-day silent meditation retreat, the same one that Jack Dorsey of formerly Twitter always talks about, right?
Finding yourself, basically.
It wasn't so much finding myself, lah. It was more like a clearing the slate, lah. Right? It wasn't an eat, pray, love journey. It was more of like a reset journey, lah. You know, like how you had to turn on and off your modem, that kind of thing, right?
At that time, was you were already in a way sort of internalized that you're gonna join ParkEasy already?
No,
not yet.
No,
not yet.
Absolutely not. At that stage, it was really like I don't even have the space to make a decision of that magnitude yet, because I'm still, recovering from whatever was happened before, right? So I did a meditation retreat. I came back. I was like, yeah, sure, let's definitely do it. And so, I was there. So I guess I'm a co-founder in the sense that I was there August, January. So I guess like 5 months after inception. Yeah. So that was the start of ParkEasy.
How many co-founders were there? One, you and Eric.
Well, it's confusing because people join and leave over time, right? Because it's 10 years.
Startups.
But I would say the core co-founders are 3 people. So it's myself, Eric, and Winnie. Winnie is our lead programmer. She's the most senior developer. We call her the chief engineer. She's like a very unsung woman in tech, I would say, because she basically is the brains of everything. Well, Eric is the CTO, so we usually say, this is our analogy. We always say that Eric designs the house, Winnie builds the house, and Warren sells the house.
What was your role in ParkEasy?
CEO, chief
CEO,
everything, man.
Everything.
Chief everything, yeah. So probably everything but tech.
And your team is like what? On average, the size of the team, 5-6
people? Fluctuated. So we I mean, this is coming into entrepreneurial startup story, right? We managed to raise quite a bit of funding early on. And I think we used that money unwisely. We we had this vision of like very quick scaling, right? And so we hired a lot. And I think at peak, we were maybe 16, 18 kind of people. So the burn rate was very high. And then eventually when we started running out of money, we actually downsized. We downsized all the way until it was just us 3 co-founders.
Oh, wow.
Right? And there were even periods in time.
It's almost purging already.
Sorry?
It's like purging of the whole
company. Purging, like it was like really hunker down bootstrap, right? I mean, there were many times. There were like, not many times. There were two.
This was 2019-ish? Or COVID?
No. This is pre-COVID. This is before EV.
Before EV.
This is before EV. Because you got to remember that EV didn't become a thing until like maybe COVID. 2018, right?
Yeah.
So this is pre-EV, okay? When we were just doing a ParkEasy parking reservation system. There were actually two times along the journey which I remember that we were saying like, should we just close the ship? Like, should we shut down, right? But we kept going because we had the user base and we saw that there was strong engagement. And for me, especially during the down times, one of my biggest like motivators that got me to continue getting out of bed to do this job was the fact that I saw reviews on our app stores, which would say stuff like, this is a fantastic app, so happy it exists, saves so much time. And that really was my fuel that kept me going. And I'm CEO, right? So I was like replying all of them, okay? I was customer service, all that sort of stuff,
When did Shell came into the picture? Was it something you approached them during, let's say, event or networking, or you simply just shoot an email? How did they even come into the picture?
So this is where like I feel that a lot of my journey and the success I experience today is a lot of dumb luck. In the sense that I didn't have this brilliant idea to say, hey, why don't we pair this car park reservation system with EV charging? No. Shell approached us, right? What happened was that the person who started Charge EV, which was the first EV charging network in Malaysia under the government, he had left the government to join Shell. And Shell, he kind of like felt like he wanted to do something similar. And Shell does have a recharge brand. So he wanted to bring it into Malaysia and find a vendor who was able to deploy it. And because he had already had that experience with Charge EV, he kind of like wanted to improve upon it in the ways that he saw fit, right? And one big part of it was actually addressing the physical security of the bay through like a barrier, right? And he had already seen such solutions in China, But before he actually went out to contact a Chinese supplier, one of his staff was like, hey, I use this service all the time in Malaysia. Why don't you reach out to these ParkEasy guys? So, we got a call. Luckily, small team, we are the ones running customer support. So go straight to us, right? And then we had a meeting, and then, they talked about deploying with us. And then so we became their deployment partner, vendor, right? And that was 2018. 2019, we had been deployed for a while, operational, and things were going well. So they said, hey, are you interested if we were to take a stake in ParkEasy? Right? And of course, I needed to hold myself back from being that desperate girlfriend, whatever. Like, yes, no, I had to consult my board of directors and all that sort of stuff, lah. So I said, yeah, it's definitely something that we're willing to consider, lah. But I need to put it through my board, right? And so very soon we came back. We said yes, and things were going along. We were assigned a person within the Shell group to actually discuss the deal. Then there was a little pandemic. I don't know if you've heard of it, right?
I think we all heard of it.
Maybe, yeah. Anyway, so then there was a pandemic. So everything just froze for 2 years. But after the pandemic ended, it didn't end, but at least the restrictions pulled back. In 2021, we did a lot more deployments. And then there was a bit of a change in terms of the person we assigned to. And then things started moving very fast. So I would say maybe the second half of 2021, our negotiations started again. Very standard acquisition process, which is, what's your valuation? How much are you willing to sell?
Due diligence.
So at the end of it, the deal wrapped up, and the shares were actually registered to Shell in June of 2022, and it was published in the newspaper.
And what sparked me just now when you mentioned of sheer dumb luck, you are crediting everything that happened when Shell approached you as a sheer dumb luck. In fact, there's a study that I read earlier that they say there's two kind of people, one with the victim mindset and one with the fighter, the entrepreneur mindset.
Sure.
It's always the fighter that credits everything to dumb luck, whereas it's a victim mindset to blame and be depressed, and that's why they can't get things done.
I don't know about fighter or victim, but I always think about it like poker. So there's two parts to it, right? There's the set of cards that you're dealt, as well as your skill of playing those cards, right? I wouldn't go so far as to say that I won the lottery in the sense that it was 100% luck, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's all because it's me. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. If we had invested our time into another venture with the same amount of skill, the same amount of dedication and hard work, there's really no guarantee that it would have paid off, right? It just so happened that this particular idea paid off.
At that moment when you were making a decision to sell it, was it easy?
I think my natural inclination pre-ParkEasy / somewhere in the middle of ParkEasy is very different. I think early on in my startup days, the whole fact that I went into startup was because I'm like, I don't know how challenging things are going to be.
Okay.
I don't know how tough things are. Just you have this complete underestimation of things, and so you just go ahead and do it. A very happy-go-lucky kind of way of doing things. Everything can do, right? After, I had a bunch of setbacks in the entrepreneurship journey, even when Shell comes to us and says hey, we're interested to take a stake, right? I'm still a bit like, is it going to happen?
Maybe not.
Is it not going to happen? Is this going to be the best decision? All that sort of stuff. So there's one half of me which is jumping for joy, another half of me is taking a cautious step. So I would say that, was it an easy decision to sell? I would say it was a very calculated decision. So we talked to our investors. I think one of the most interesting things, which I'll share here, is just the idea of what happens when you're contemplating an acquisition or a deal with such a large organization. One of the things that was very clear up front was that we can't just sell 20-30%. It has to be the whole lock, stock and barrel, because you can't get any other funding after that, right? It's not like you get bought in by Shell and then or BP or ExxonMobil also want to buy into you, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're closed off, you're exclusive.
In a way, exclusive, yeah.
So that's why we made sure that we negotiated for the whole thing, right? And I think as time went by, up until the final moment, then we were comfortable to sign, right? Up to literally the moment that you sign the agreement, technically, you could still pull out, even though like months and months of time has
Can
been
be the
spent.
night before.
Yeah, it can be the night before. In fact, it was told to me just as much by some of our investors that they have seen that sort of things happen before.
Was there any part of you where this is my baby that I've built for 10 years already?
Yeah,
was there any part of it?
Of course lah. I mean, so okay, there are two parts of it, right? So number one, you do the same thing for 10 years. You get a bit exhausted, right? So there's a bit of burnout.
True.
So in that sense, it was easy to kind of like move on to the next thing. But at the same time, I've been doing this thing for 10 years. I put so much into it. I have become very emotionally attached, especially to my team, right? And I think at some point you also have a bit of your identity entangled, right?
To the brand.
To the whole thing, right? So now it's weird, right? I used to say, oh, okay, I'm CEO of ParkEasy. Now it's former CEO of ParkEasy. I don't know. Like I have been speakers at some events, and then they're always required to put the position, right? I usually put unemployed or retired, and they're like, no, we have to put former CEO or whatever. Yeah.
Just now you mentioned when you went into this startup, you were happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
What influenced you? Was it always something in your family where, hey, everyone's an entrepreneur, we should ultimately eventually be an entrepreneur ourselves? Or was business ever a thing? Or was it something you saw online, you wanted to try?
Yeah, so interesting question, because my family actually have all been bosses or are currently bosses. So I do come from a family which
it runs in the blood.
Runs. Yeah, and all separate things, not family business. I'll all do their own business one. But ultimately, I can't pinpoint to a specific moment. I don't have that story of trying to sell newspapers at a young age, or like having a lemonade store or like a side hustle.
Selling during high school.
No, nothing. It's only until university, and even then it was just university competitions, right? So I remember when I was in university, there was this entrepreneurship annual entrepreneurship challenge. It's quite fun. They basically say that, the theme of this year is a particular item like paint or water bottles, and you need to make as much value as possible from that item within the period of the competition, right? And so I think I participated for 2 years out of my 3 years in university, and I got something out of it each time. And so maybe it's from there that I kind of decided that it is interesting or fun to create something.
So you were quite resourceful. You're like more of a creator mindset rather than a consumer mindset already.
Definitely, I enjoy creating things. So creator mindset. And then I would say that later on down my journey, I've had to also put on an operator mindset. So I would say my creator mindset is innate. And then like operating and managing has been something that has had to come via experience and training.
So what's after this? Like what other ventures? Because usually the VCs and entrepreneurs that I know, once they've done something, maybe a very tough road, years and decades when they sold off, usually take some break, take some sabbatical, and then now they got a playbook, they copy paste to maybe other VC funds or another startup. Would you do that again?
Yeah, so like obviously I think there are not many companies in Malaysia startups in Malaysia that can say they got acquired by a global MNC, a very renowned one, right? So that puts me in a very select list of startup founders. And there have been, like, my previous investors have said, hey, Warren, anytime you want to start something, right? And I also have friends like who are in the startup scene, and now they've moved on to do other stuff. And some of them actually work in venture funds, and the same thing. Yeah. Like anytime, Warren, hey, how about I give you a few, and then you go.
Not for you?
Not for my startup lah. For any startup.
No, this is not for you. Like you're not interested in it.
Well, for me, I'm not closing the door. For me, the motivation has got to do with an idea that compels me. Something that, sounds so great that I feel like, is something worth doing. I had such an idea actually a couple of months ago, but I think my position right now is that I try and really do some more research before I actually execute. And for me, I did a bunch of research and then like it fizzled out. But if my research had said, hey, this is a good idea, I think today I would be telling you that, I'm doing this other startup.
I mean, I can't believe that. Usually entrepreneurs, when they say they take a break, I feel like something is still playing in their mind. But now that they got the experience to evaluate and analyze, I feel it's only a matter of time that people of your capability will jump into the thing again. I mean, I can only guess.
Well, for me, it's just got to do with interest. I am interested in business.
Now you got more freedom of choice to choose.
Yeah. And like, I mean, talking about being interested in business, I am like starting now, maybe within the last few months, actually also doing some advisory work as well. It's all very organic,
But still in the game, basically.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't like to say like in the game. I would say I have 1 foot in the game. 1 foot is still like chilling, right? And yeah, the reason why I decided to do the advisory work is just because I see it as an opportunity for me to share my experience, but also I am genuinely interested to see businesses, how they grow, how they strategize, all that sort of stuff.
You mentioned chilling. Let's dive into it. In order to be able to say that word, you need money, right?
Yeah.
I know there's probably you are bounded by NDA, confidentiality. Give me a sense of what kind of money have you gotten from the sale of ParkEasy?
I guess I can say I'm a millionaire.
Okay.
But I'm a very modest millionaire. I'm not spending on cars or everything. I'm really living a life whereby I monitor my budget very closely. Very, very closely. I have a specific number that I need to spend within on a monthly basis to ensure that my passive income outstrips my my expenses. In fact, that's my goal.
So like maybe give the audience a little bit more insight on what kind of FIRE are you on?
When you talk about FIRE, there's a type of FIRE whereby your plan is to have enough money until you pass away.
Yep.
And kosong at the time you pass away. Whereas there's another type of FIRE whereby you want to grow that nest egg such that you can actually pass that on. So I have 2 young kids.
Yep.
My plan is to pass something on to them.
You got millions from the sales. Then what do you do with your money? Do you park it in fixed deposit, money market fund, or what have you done with the money?
Okay, so not this is not financial advice,
right? What you have done. I just want to know what you have done.
For me, I've gone the most plain vanilla approach, which is ETF, right? Specific ETF that I'm tracking is VWRA. So Vanguard World Stocks. It just basically tracks
Irish.
like Irish domicile because that was your advice. Honestly, that's how I found out. You taught me in a way, indirectly, right? I watched your videos.
Pleasure.
I got IBKR, everything. I think actually the first fund I was invested in was actually VOO, so S&P. Why I moved away from S&P 500 was actually got to do with my philosophy of investing. So I'm going for holding period like forever and diversification.
You need that stability.
So for me, my logic was this. If I go QQQ, NASDAQ, right, I'll probably get one of the highest returns in a diversified portfolio, right? But what happens if tech stocks don't do well? Then I would sell QQQ and would pull back to VOO, right? S&P. But if S&P doesn't do, like if US, whatever, maybe all this tariff war is going to cause a big
election and stuff.
Then I would pull back to VWRA, right? But if the global economy doesn't do well, then there's nothing to pull back to. So in my logic, that's like the maximum diversification, the most conservative stance that you can take, right? I know maybe you could say you pull back to gold or something like that.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm keeping it in equity because, I see that balances my portfolio.
Bring me back through just, pulling back a little bit towards the moment, the day. I don't know if you can recollect the day when you saw the money in the bank account. I presume it will be a date that you'll never forget, and it must be surreal.
Well, I did forget the date, but I do remember the day, like the experience. It was like we don't know when the money is gonna come into our bank account.
True.
Right? So myself and my founders, we have like a co-founder WhatsApp group chat, right? So like, you got the money? I got the money. So I think I think it was Eric who first texted me like, the money is in.
Wow.
And then like I log into my bank account and it's like, oh, that's like, I've not seen that much money ever before, right? So I think the immediate reaction was like, wow. It's almost like you can't quite comprehend it. But I think what's very interesting is that a few months down the road, right, I was talking to Eric and I was like, has anything changed for you? And we're like, no, we're still, I tell you, between him and I, one of our most common discussions is what's the most value for money.
Yeah.
Like, because we both have kids, right? We're like, oh, this one, this deal quite good. Oh, that bank, the term deposit very good. All that sort of stuff. So it doesn't matter that we now are all millionaires. We are still like thinking, we have that mindset lah.
What shifted immediately? Like, I'm gonna buy that car, that house, that watch, or whatever.
It's so funny. Like, so
none of it.
I like Japan. I think you like Japan too, based on your videos. So I wanted to travel to Japan. That was my first thing. But I have young children. My son on that particular day, he's only 2 years old, and 2 years old, the kids, right? And he was being very difficult to manage when we were eating at a restaurant. And I was just saying to my wife, even if we have this money to go to Japan, I can't imagine having fun on that trip if at the same time we have to deal with, the current phase that he's going through. And rather that we use that money to go on a holiday where they will enjoy themselves and everything. Just so you know, we ended up getting a Legoland annual pass at Mata Fair, right? But these are the kind of things that are.
So you still think twice when it comes to spending your money?
For sure, for sure. I think the good thing, and this is really one of the best things about budgeting, and FIRE, I think a lot about it is budgeting, is by having constraints on how much money you can spend, you start to make decisions that actually matter to you.
You don't really spend lavishly from what I can tell from what you said, right?
Yeah.
Are you content with this kind of lifestyle?
I mean, I would say day-to-day life, I'm pretty content. I used to tell people I'm retired. Now I'm starting to like trend towards saying I'm a house husband. And I hope this like routine demonstrates why. So we don't have a live-in maid, right? We have a cleaner that comes once a week. And that was a conscious decision because we like to have that privacy, right? And so who does the dishes? Who does the mopping? Who does the everything? That's me lah, right?
Your wife is still working?
My wife, so the roles have reversed.
Okay.
So remember how I told you there was a time whereby I didn't have a salary? So my wife supported me, right?
Ooh, okay.
And so now the roles have reversed. She's pursuing her art career, right? And I'm doing I'm being the house husband, right? I kind of like have allocated each day to do something. So Monday is dating day. So
you have a schedule.
I have a schedule, yeah. So actually it's a rotation, it's a weekly rotation. First Monday of the month, I chill. So that's my date. Okay, that's my date. The second Monday, I take my wife out on a date. The third Monday, I take my dad out for the date. And the fourth Monday, I take my mom out on the date.
Oh, that's nice.
So, it varies what we do. For my wife and I, we go to like bookshops or, just this Monday, we went to the High Street Studios. We went to the Go Down, just walk around the city. For my mom, we do things like, I took her to an art gallery and stuff like that. I took her to like some old buildings. For my dad, it's like go to JPJ office, apply for his car grant. The whole point is just that I'm spending time with them, and it's one-on-one. So that has been fantastic. Tuesdays are my me time days, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is a mix now. It used to be just house errands. Now it's a mix of house errands and advisory work.
Because you're ex-entrepreneur, someone that has sold off for millions already, was there any lingering consideration of maybe I should do something? Like, all this fun is nice, luxury of time with kids, all these are lovely, right?
Yeah.
Like, I could have done more. I could have done 5 more ParkEasy.
Like I said, the door's not closed. But I'm neither soliciting or looking out for it. I'm just like seeing if there's a moment of inspiration or an idea I hear and it compels me to do something. My wife actually has a product that she has in mind, which I'm kind of interested in, and that might be something I spend my time on.
So you got more time to toy around different ideas.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
Priorities in life.
That's true.
Yeah.
And for the audience that maybe aspiring to do the same, right? 10 plus years of, I believe, struggle, sacrifices in order to sell off millions, right? Was it worth it?
It was worth it for me.
Okay.
Because it was succeeded, right?
Yep.
So like
hindsight, right?
Let's say I think if you've read that Effective Habits of Highly Successful, I don't know, that there's that book, right?
Yep.
I remember that I think it's seven habits
of successful people. Yeah.
I think he gives this analogy about how, you know, you go to a doctor or optician and he says to you, "Oh, you have poor eyesight? Take my glasses. I have been using it for the last 10 years and it's worked perfectly for me. Why don't you put it on and it should work for you too?" And then, of course, the patient comes back after that and says, "Hey, doctor, it's not working for me." And then the optician says, "Well, it's got to be you then, because I've been doing it for 10 years and it's been no problem for me," right? So I will say that my experience with startup is really my experience and not the prescription that I would give to everybody. In fact, I might almost caution against it because I feel like, number one, the statistics are not in your favor, right? Probability-wise, your startup will not succeed.
What do you mean by that? Like, let's quantify that.
I always say 9 out of 10, right? I think that's 9
out of 10 fail.
9 out of 10 fail, right? So you have to be part of that lucky 10%. And then I say lucky 10%, because I'm not saying that the 90% who failed were dumb or stupid or didn't work hard enough. I think you can very much so work very hard and still end up failing.
Yep.
Right? So anyway, coming back to my recommendation in terms of like
being entrepreneurial,
whether it was fruitful in this journey. It was fruitful for me. But if you are looking to FIRE, I wouldn't say that startup is the wisest choice. It's probably the riskiest choice. The safest choice, climb the corporate ladder, get a very nice monthly fat paycheck, but make sure you spend way below your means and you take that savings and you put it towards your nest egg. And definitely graph out your nest egg to give you that motivation to save.
But for people, especially youngsters, they would think that that's very slow. Then Warren, I wouldn't be able to FIRE by 35.
Yeah.
That's at what, 45, 50 years old, right?
Sure.
But how can I speed that up?
How you can speed? Okay, fine. So obviously you could do a startup.
Yep.
But I think the way that I would do a startup and be financially wise at the same time would be to make sure that you pay yourself, or you get your startup to a position whereby you can pay yourself a healthy market rate salary. I can tell you that across the board, I see a lot of startups. All the founders just pay themselves peanuts, enough to survive,
bare minimum,
right? Bare minimum, right? And I think that they're saying that from the perspective of, okay, I own this business, therefore I pay myself peanuts because ultimately I'll get paid off by the success of the company's sale, right? I think you need to change that mindset, because the success of your company's sale or IPO or just, it's automated, whatever, is very much so a bet, right? What you can do instead is you can pay yourself a market rate salary. And in order to get your startup to a point which will pay yourself a market rate salary means that you're doing a good business, which in itself is good for your startup. And then you treat yourself like a regular employee. You take that money, you save it, you put it aside into your nest egg. And then if something miraculous happens and you manage to benefit from being a shareholder of your company, then that will be your shortcut. But you don't bank on it. It's just it's a bonus.
FIRE can be if I can, summarize it, you are saying FIRE can be a long-term goal, but don't make it something that you must achieve by a young age.
Obviously, like some people are saying that, crypto, right?
Yep.
Bitcoin. I would say that there's definitely people out there who are going to make money from Bitcoin, but there's also a good chance that nobody might make money at all, right?
Yep.
If you're betting your entire FIRE future, I think I would go for safe bets.
So as someone that have craved for FIRE for years, possibly, and currently doing FIRE, in your experience, what does the 1% know about FIRE that the 99% doesn't know?
I don't think I'm in 1%. I said I'm a modest millionaire, okay?
Well, 1% can be like wealth plus mindset plus skill set. Sure. I believe you should be up the top tier already.
What I can say is that I think that there's a very big difference between knowing something on paper and then actually experiencing it for real, right? So in my case, it was, I studied finance and economics. So I know that this is a capitalist economy. I know that you can actually have investments generate a passive income greater than your active income. But I never really felt it was real until it happened to myself. So, I mean, this has been a good year for stocks, right?
Yep, true.
Okay. So, in the last 8 months, I have made more money than I have in any single year of my career.
Wow.
Right? And I haven't even been working, right? And okay, it's paper gains lah.
Yep.
But ultimately, it has shown me that it is true. It is possible. So I think when that moment happened, there's like a switch that flips in your head, right? And suddenly I'm like, okay, instead of always chasing how can I increase my income, I think more about how can I increase my capital. Because increasing income feels like a very one-off thing, right? It's like saying to myself, brushing your teeth every day versus having a robot to brush your teeth for you, right? Having income means that you have to constantly work on it. Whereas you have capital, it will automatically give you money nonstop.
More passive income also.
Yeah, more passive income. So capital is the way to go. That's what I think the 1% thinks about. They don't think about how do I make more salary. They think about how can I make more returns.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What are the misconceptions of FIRE that people that may be aspiring to do it have?
Yeah.
Versus like you're already experiencing it. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's 2 big misconceptions I would like to bring up.
Okay.
And the first one I would like to borrow from another source. So I do budgeting. And I use an app called YNAB, right?
YNAB.
YNAB. You need a budget. That's what it stands for, right? And so that YNAB has a podcast. And there was a particular story that was shared by the host, which I feel like really highlights one of the misconceptions. So this guy, he goes swimming in the mornings at his local YMCA. And as he was swimming, one day, he saw this like old auntie, swimming laps like damn fast, like way faster than him. And he tried damn hard and he still couldn't keep up with her, right? And eventually he was tired out and he got out of the pool. And when he got out of the pool, then he realized that this old auntie was actually wearing swimming fins. She had flippers on. So that's how she was able to swim faster, right? And so I think people look out there and they look at people who have achieved FIRE early like myself, right? And they will say like, they'll feel inadequate perhaps because they think that, how is it that this guy has achieved this when I have not yet, right? I think number 1, there's a lot of dumb luck as I've already brought up. But number 2, there's certain advantages that I've had in life which I do not take for granted. I'm very conscious of the privileges I've had and I'm internally grateful for it. And I think one of the biggest privileges I've had is just the fact that my parents are financially stable.
Yeah.
I don't have to look after their medical costs.
And that's actually often overlooked.
Yeah. And then the fact that, I mean, if I need to support my parents, no way am I going to do a startup, right?
Yeah, you won't have the time and money.
I'll just stick in a corporate job, get my, and support them, right? But also on top of that, I also feel like I have a strong safety net, right? So once again, coming back to financial stability, they paid for my education. So I have a university's degree and I do not have student loans. So if all else failed with my startup, I knew I could go back to corporate, right? So all I'm trying to say here is that if you're trying to FIRE and you're in your 50s and you're looking at me right now and you're like, this guy got FIRE in his 30s, there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. You're fine. I had some swimming fins. That's all.
So everyone has their different pace, basically.
Everyone has a different pace. And then the second misconception is just the fact that there's nothing to do when you retire. I have a lot of people who look at me, Warren, you must be very bored now, right? Because you got nothing to do, stay at home all the time.
I would think so also.
No, man.
No, actually no.
So like when you do startup, you kind of like put a lot of things aside, right?
Yeah.
Especially health, relationships, even family.
That's
you know?
true.
And if you think about it, if you want to eat healthy, get 8 hours of sleep, exercise every day, meditate, I don't know, journal, declutter your house, it takes up a lot of time. Spending time with your children, all of these kind of things. It's my whole point. My whole point is that don't worry about being bored after you retire. Yeah,
You'll find your things to do.
You'll definitely find your things to do. And also firing, the word retire, I think, is not, in the context of FIRE, and it's not said by me, it's said by many, is the fact that it's not about doing nothing, right? It's about basically putting yourself where you no longer have that financial pressure in order to dictate what you're going to do next, right? So maybe you do FIRE and suddenly you decide that, hey, I want to dedicate the rest of my time to volunteering, or I want to dedicate the rest of my time to, being an artist, something like that. So do not think of retirement as the end of your life. In fact, it's just the beginning of a new kind of life, right?
Closing one door means opening a few new more doors.
Yeah, many doors.
Right. Warren, I think that just beautifully summarizes it, and I just want to wish you all the best. But just one last question. If you could go back in the past and change just one thing, what would that be?
If I could go back in time, what I would say to myself is that, I've been a lot kinder to myself. I mean, I will share, and this is quite personal, that I put a very high standard to myself. In fact, this was back during the first Elon Musk biography, back pre-Twitter, okay? This is still when Elon Musk was like person of the year by Time, right? And I looked up to him, and I saw how hard he worked. Like, he was basically working nonstop. And there are days where we're not productive, right? For whatever reason. Maybe even get sick. And I would like internally beat myself up for just being sick. I'd be like, Warren, why are you so unproductive? Why aren't you better? Why did you not think of this? Why did you not think of that? You are carrying your company. You are carrying this responsibility. So I was very hard on myself, and it went into a spiral, in fact. So what would happen is that I'm unproductive, and I beat myself up, I become depressed, and I become less productive, and then I beat myself up more for hating myself for, being more unproductive. And so, if I could go back in time, I would give myself a hug.